Trans Mountain built has really shattered the confidence of investors, not just here in Canada, but all around the world. So those are some of the things that came up today. The House of Commons comes back in 2 weeks, and will be less than 2 weeks, and we'll be holding the Liberal government to account for their failures to get our energy to market, to foreign markets, as well as their continued inability to do anything with to stop the flow of illegal border crosses, and of course the massive deficits and debt that are piling up and becoming a burden on Canadian taxpayers. So those are just some of the things that we were talking about today, but happy to take your questions on any other issues as well.
Andrew, can you have a comment on today? The Canadian government issued a statement joined with UK, US on the Russian agent poison case. From your point of view, do you support that movement, and what do you believe Canada can do in terms of trying to work with the other allies to stop it?
Well, I certainly would join with our express the concern from the Conservative Party on what has happened with agents of foreign governments acting in this way. I was actually in the United Kingdom just a day after the attack on a UK citizen, and so I'm not privy to the information, the security information that the government has on this, but certainly I think for countries like the UK, Canada, US, democracies that believe in the rule of law and respecting international commitments, and obviously, condemning this type of activity that targets individuals outside of a country. It's just a horrendous act of violence committed against individuals in the UK. So, without having read the report, I won't be able to comment specifically to that. But of course, a Conservative government would always stand with our traditional allies and stand up and speak out against the types of activities that we've seen the Russian government engage in over the last little while.
Mr. Scheer, since you're in Richmond right now, the epicenter of birth tourism, let's talk about the issue. Your party passed a non-binding motion on ending birth tourism, but in a statement from your party stating that they don't want to change the tradition of people born in Canada automatically get the Canadian citizenship. So what are your ideas in your mind that you want to safeguard that, policy?
Well, as you point out, at our convention, this issue was raised, and we've been hearing it regularly from people in Richmond saying that they have concerns about the generosity of Canada's system being taken advantage of for the sole purpose of obtaining citizenship for a child without the intention of obtaining in the traditional way, which is choosing to come to Canada to build a life here, to engage and contribute to society. So the resolution passed. Now it's up to our caucus to do the work as to see what is practical. What are the tools available to the government that can help address this, while keeping in mind established legal principles and existing laws around that. So our Shadow Minister for Immigration, Michelle Rempel, has started a comprehensive consultation process. She's going to go across the country and hear directly from people and look at the laws that are on the books and the rules that are on the books and what changes might be made. So that's what we're currently doing. The work between a resolution at a convention and a specific plank in the policy platform and the campaign platform, we're doing that work. So I don't want to get ahead of that. I don't want to in any way get out in front of that work before it's done. So once we've done the proper consultation and the proper analysis, we'll be willing to propose specific resolutions to it.
I remember my previous conversation with two previous immigration ministers, Jason Kenney and Chris Alexander. Back then, Jason Kenney wanted to look at it and see if there's anything that falls under the federal jurisdiction that can be done. Chris Alexander don't want to touch that file at all. He said it's not significant back then. And what made that change in the Conservative stance that you want to reopen or to look at this birth tourism file?
Well, I certainly can't speak for the other two ministers you mentioned. Not being minister myself, then it's up to them to say that. I will say that there does seem to be a growing trend And when we look at changing fundamental rules to address issues, we have to understand that there are unintended consequences, there are ramifications. And so if it is a small isolated incident, to change a fundamental principle of an immigration system may cause other consequences. And so in the past, the previous governments might have just said, well, maybe we can address the specific issues without fundamental changes. It does seem to be a growing trend. I think Alice mentioned today that the rate of this has doubled in a very short period of time. So, it now is becoming a more significant problem where people are talking about it more. This was the first convention that I can recall where this particular resolution made it to the floor, and our grassroots members voted in favor of our party addressing it. So that's why we are a grassroots party. We respect the engagement of our members, and when our members come to a convention and debate an issue and pass it, we take that seriously. And so now we're taking that resolution seriously. We're going to look at it as a parliamentary team, look at it through different lenses: what's legal, what's possible, what have courts ruled, what other tools may apply. And that's the hard work that we do on behalf of our members and on behalf of our party. And then once that's done, we'll put that in front of Canadians and allow Canadians to choose if they support it.
On the NAFTA issue, if we're not going to have a deal soon, so what can we do? And we talk about, the Parliament is going to reopen in less than 2 weeks. What, as the opposition party leader, what can you push the government? If we don't have a deal, what are the options for us?
Well, I don't want to be negative. I'm hopeful for a deal. I am, the NAFTA is so important to every Canadian. Every region in Canada depends on free trade with the United States for a huge percentage of our economy. We've been very supportive of the government's efforts to obtain a good deal for Canada. I've led a trade mission to Washington promoting trade with Canada. That was very successful. When we hold the government to account, it's about what we feel they've done to weaken our position at the negotiation table. So we now have a situation where Mexico and the United States have left the Canadian government out of the talks for several weeks, coming to major agreements on key issues that will affect Canada. Well, Justin Trudeau was on the sidelines. That's unacceptable. That's not a good situation to be in. So when we hold the government to account, it's when we speak to Americans, when we speak to our counterparts, we present that united front promoting free trade with Canada. But we have an obligation to ask questions to the government as to why they allowed certain things to happen. For example, why did they introduce social issues into a trade agreement? Talking about issues that, bringing in issues to the negotiation table that have nothing to do with market access, nothing to do with jobs. Why they weren't at the table for the past 5 weeks. And then why are they doing things to our economy that weaken our power at the negotiation table? Because of liberal tax hikes and regulatory changes, billions and billions of dollars have left our economy. So fewer Americans are fighting for access to Canadian markets when the government makes those types of policy changes. When you look at countries who are building the type of climate where people are fighting to get into, they have a stronger position in negotiating with other countries because there's that domestic pressure in the US. So those are the types of things we'll be holding the government to account for. It's not only legitimate for the opposition to ask these types of questions, it's our responsibility. We'd be doing a disservice to Canadians if we didn't ask the government why they made certain decisions.
Mr. Scheer, regarding the pipeline expansion, what would you do if you were in Mr. Trudeau's shoes now? Mm-hmm.
This is a question I get a lot. There is no question that Justin Trudeau has caused this outcome. And I know the Liberals would like to say, well, nobody could have got this built. No. This court ruling was crystal clear. The process that existed was adequate. The execution of the process was where the failure came to pass. So Justin Trudeau became Prime Minister in 2015. This phase of the consultation process started in 2016. And this government, this Liberal government, failed to execute these consultations properly. So I would have done it properly. I also would repeal the Liberal ban on pipeline bill. There is a bill, C-69, that every expert agrees is effectively a ban on new pipeline projects. The carbon tax has also chased away investment as well. And the Liberals have done nothing to assert federal jurisdiction in this project. We've been demanding a plan for months. Say, Show Canadians how you're going to stand up for federal jurisdiction. Show Canadians how you're going to make sure that consultation processes are done adequately. Before Justin Trudeau became Prime Minister, big pipeline projects were built with investors' money, not with taxpayers' money. He came to office, he killed 2 major pipeline projects on political grounds, and now a third one is hanging in the mix. So the failure on this file lays entirely at his feet. As I mentioned, I would conduct the consultation processes properly. I would repeal his ban on pipeline bill. I would eliminate the carbon tax. I would stand up for federal jurisdiction and clearly define these types of parameters, not allow months and months to pass and force it all to be solved in the courts.
How do you divide this pipeline, this Trans-Canada pipeline?
As I mentioned,
It's not dead, right?
well, taxpayers now own it, so we are all shareholders in this pipeline, and we have a right to know why the government continues to fail to get it built. Just a few months ago, the private sector investors were willing to see this through. Because of all the regulatory changes, because of all the uncertainty around court rulings and processes and protesters and provincial governments, those investors lost confidence in Canada, and Justin Trudeau had to buy them out. They've now taken your tax dollars and are investing it, this company is investing it in pipelines in the United States. So our tax dollars are going to our competitors. That is a situation that exists entirely because of Justin Trudeau.
We had from what media are you from?
From Singapore Daily. Hi, Mr. Scheer. Once you mentioned about if a Conservative Party gets elected, and you may consider to seek a trade relationship with the UK. And would you mind to talk more about that? What could Canada benefit from the trade relationship?
Well, I announced early in 2018 that as Prime Minister, I would quickly conclude a free trade deal with the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom is currently leaving the European Union and is going to be looking to the world for free trade deals. Canada has a unique opportunity to take advantage of that. They are a major trading partner already, but we're not allowed to trade with them unless we go through Europe first and get the European free trade deal passed. So by quickly conducting a free trade deal with the United Kingdom, we can open up that market to our exporters. There are so many companies that do business in Canada and in the UK. We have the same rule of law, we have the same parliamentary systems, we have the same head of state. There are so many natural advantages to having that concluded quickly. We could then be used as an access point to the United States and Mexico by the UK if we quickly establish that. So there are major benefits, and I think by sending that signal early, I can, as Prime Minister, give Canada a competitive advantage by moving quickly on that.
We have a local media here.
Thank you. Andrew, Alice, thank you very much. Martin Van Hemel from the Richmond Sentinel newspaper. Earlier this year, Ottawa announced a $50 million commitment to supporting journalism in Canada in the face of all of the challenges the media faced. Signs are pointing towards that $50 million being used to employ journalists across Canada, and some are questioning whether that will do anything to change the fact that newspapers across Canada are shutting down. What do you think should be done with that $50 million fund?
Well, I'm very skeptical of this announcement by the government. I'm also very concerned when you look at some of the things this current Liberal government has done in terms of imposing values tests on government funding. I would hate to see this type of mentality be applied to journalism as well, where groups looking for student funding for the summer had to agree that they asserted agreement with the personal positions of the Prime Minister on social issues. That is a precedent that is very troubling. And if you look at that in conjunction with now the decision to fund journalism, we've always had a very strong and robust separation between government and free and open press in Canada. So very skeptical of that. I'm also skeptical as to whether or not that will actually have a fundamental benefit to the industry. As I understand it, when I talk to people who are engaged in the media from the local level to the larger outlets, there's a fundamental shift in the commercial model, and I would prefer, instead of having direct government money going to companies to hire or retain workers, look at why it is that newspapers are struggling. a lot of it, as I understand it, comes down to content creation versus commercialization of that content. So you go out and you write an article, and then it gets on a news aggregator that gets all the ad revenue for the content that you've created. And there are other models that exist that say, okay, the creator of the product or the content should benefit from the distribution of it. And that is a framework that could be built which gets the government out of direct grants to different outlets. Because you'd hate to live in a world where if I didn't like what you wrote, I could, a government official could pull your funding. I'd rather create a commercial framework that treats all outlets equally. You're not fighting for government revenue. You're able to commercialize the content that you create.
Yeah, one more question from the group, and then we will arrange for the one-on-one by our press secretary, Daniel. Yes.
Hi, I'm Caroline from Fairchild TV. I have a question regarding to the coming up election, federal election. So just wondering, how does Maxime Bernier's breakaway might affect Conservatives' prospect in the next coming federal election?
Well, I don't believe it'll have a significant impact because I believe people understand that this was a personal decision that he took for his own ambition. And when you look at what the Conservative Party stands for and what the issues we are fighting for, the people that may have supported him in the past have a home in our party because we're the only party that is fighting for those very issues. And the feedback I've gotten from across the country is that those individuals who may have supported him in the past are not just staying with the Conservative Party, they're excited to be in the Conservative Party to continue working on it, whether it's greater free enterprise, whether it's standing up against illegal border crossings, promoting lawful immigration, whether it's standing up for Canada's history and our culture and our identity. That is where the Conservative Party has always been on. So the individual positions that we've taken on key issues are a clear contrast with the Liberals and offer an exciting alternative to people in Canada, Conservatives who want greater individual freedom, greater free markets, and a strong commitment to preserving Canada's history.
Thank you.
Just a follow-up question. But Bernier stated that the reason why he left the party is because he shared like a different point of view from Conservative. Do you have anything to say?
He ran under our party's banner for four or five elections. He didn't have a problem with it then. He didn't have a problem with it when he was making announcements as a minister. I don't think that's a very sincere or authentic position for him to hold. He has to justify it somehow. But on the issues, when you go back point by point, we're the party that's fighting against the carbon tax. We're the party that's looking to liberalize our economy and get government out of picking winners and losers. We are the party that's fighting for eliminating the deficit and paying off Canada's debt, for lowering the individual tax burden. We are the party that is that clear contrast to the Liberals. So it's still unclear to me on which issues he believes that there's this great gulf. I'll leave it for him to talk about that. I'm busy building up our party, promoting my positive vision for what Canada should be under a Conservative government, and that's where my focus will be continuing. He can concentrate on whatever it is he likes to. We're going to be building our team, our caucus is going out and capturing the imagination of Canadians.
Thank you very much. So Daniel.
Thanks, everyone.